You're listening to Popstar Conversations, taking you inside with your favorite musical artists.
Chuck and I are speaking with the iconic Ray Manzarek of the Doors. Ray, welcome to the show.
Ray, welcome to the show. I know it's been a long time, but can you recall what it was like recording L.A. Woman in 1970?
Okay. Well, we did it at the Doors rehearsal studio, the Doors workshop, a little studio with offices upstairs, a little building, and a downstairs room. And we did it in about 2 weeks' time. That was all the recording it took. And the office was right on the corner of La Cienega and Santa Monica, so right in the heart of West Los Angeles, across the street from the offices of Elektra Records.
Oh, I see.
So after we decided to record it in our own studio, Bruce Botnick said, I can get the board, the control room board from Sunset Sound that we used when we made the first two Doors records. So we said, oh, marvelous, how terrific. It was an old tube board and had great sound. But it was antiquated, but we were doing it in a virtually live. I mean, what we did was really live recording. It was like being on stage, except we had space left for overdubs. And so he brought that over from Elektra Records. Elektra Records had bought it, and the tack piano from Elektra Studio across the street. I used that piano on L.A. Woman, and a great sound of the tack piano. The piano with the tacks put into the hammers, an upright, old-timey, get an old-timey sound, an old cowboy-like sound, or old 1920s kind of piano sound. I remember a lot. This is going to take a long time.
It sounds like you had a relaxed, creative working environment.
It was extremely relaxed because it was at our recording studio, our rehearsal studio, where we had played and rehearsed and worked on the songs for a good 3 years, for God's sake. So we knew the sound of the place and inside and out. And so Bruce put all the controls upstairs along with the tape machine, 16-track tape recorder. And then he ran cables down from upstairs, down the back door, and out the back door upstairs into the recording studio downstairs where we were playing. Set up the microphones, set up baffles as they're called to separate the sound a little bit. And we proceeded to have at it, to go to work, playing the songs downstairs while he was recording upstairs, and it was it worked out perfectly. Then we'd play do a few takes, and go upstairs and listen, and say that's it, that's good, or no, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. Yes, that one right there, number 4, perfect. And that's the way we did it, and it worked out beautifully. And we had 2 extra players with us. We had a bass player. We usually used a bass player. Jerry Sheff was Elvis Presley's bass player. We had him, and we had a rhythm guitar player, Mark Benno, who played the parts that Robbie would play, the rhythm parts, and this left Robbie free to play the lead lines at the same time. So those tracks are virtually, that's it. What you hear is what was played by the 5 musicians, and Jim singing. Jim did. Sometimes we used his takes on the takes that we played. Sometimes we had him do overdubs. Mm-hmm. And the tack piano, for instance, was overdubbed. I played the Fender Rhodes electric piano, and then I overdubbed on it the tack piano. And everything was very smooth and very quick, and we'd send Danny Sugarman out across the street to get us a 6-pack of beer, of Mexican beer, Tecate, T-E-C-A-T-E, Tecate. We'd send Danny out. Danny would say to Jim would say to him, Danny, go get us a 6-pack of beer. Make sure it's a nice cold one. And Danny would say, Jim, I'm only 14 years old. I can't buy beer. And Jim would say, "Oh, just tell the guy, he knows me. Tell him it's for Jim across the street. They're recording, and it's for Jim." And sure enough, the owner of the Monaco Liquors would give Danny a 6-pack of beer and put it on the Doors account. Danny would sneak back across the street. It was just across Santa Monica Boulevard. But interesting, Santa Monica Boulevard is Route 66.
Ray, the woman in L.A. Woman, was there any woman in particular that inspired you?
Oh, in general. No one in particular, yet your L.A. Woman, my L.A. Woman. My L.A. Woman is Dorothy Fujikawa, my wife, and Jim's L.A. Woman was, probably many, but mainly Pam Curson. It was an homage to all women, not only L.A. women, but women, and L.A. as a woman, the city itself.
Yeah, and the Doors seemed to inspire the Red Hot Chili Peppers to write about L.A. women as well.
Yes.
Theme, right?
Yes, absolutely, sure. Until at the end, of course, it's death. Riders on the Storm is about death. Except for the very last verse. The very last verse, Jim says, girl, you've got to love your man. Girl, you've got to love your man. Take him by the hand. Make him understand. His world on you depends. And now mysticism, our life will never end. Girl, you've got to love your man. So the last thing Jim recorded was a plea to love, saying love one another. It's about a killer on the road. It was a killer, but in the end, he just couldn't bring himself to continue with that theme. He turned to love as the saving grace. Love will heal us all, and your life will never end. That's LSD talking. That's mysticism. That's the great aim of Jesus Christ, to tell everyone that it's infinite. Your life will never end. And as he said, as I am, so can you become. We can all become enlightened. We can all open the doors of perception. And that's what Jim was saying.
And did Paul, your producer, did he really nickname that song Cocktail Jazz?
Yes, he sort of did, but we didn't play very well either. When Paul, we went into Sunset Sound to play the songs for Paul about a week or two before we started recording, and we played very badly. We had no energy, no fire. I don't know why. It was probably being at Sunset Sound. We had done it. We'd played there. It was 2 albums. The same group was getting back together for a final song, and there was nothing really exciting about what we did. And Paul realized that and gave us a kick in the ass. He said, "Listen, guys, if this is what you're going to do, I quit." And we went, "What? You quit?" He said, "Yeah. Why don't you do it yourself?" He said, "You guys do it." And he walked out the door. And we went, holy shit. There goes Paul. I mean, he's the producer. And then Bruce said, "Hey, I'll produce. Let's do it ourselves," just like Paul said. And we all went, "Yeah, let's co-produce it." Produced by Bruce Botnick and the Doors. And then we got very excited. And then Jim said, "Let's not do it here at Sunset Sound. Let's do it at the Doors workshop." And Bruce Botnick said, "I can do that. That's no problem. I'll bring the board across the street." I said, "I want that cat piano from me. We'll wheel that across La Cienega Boulevard, too." There we were, 4 of us wheeling an upright piano across La Cienega Boulevard in the middle of the day with cars, somebody stopping cars on both sides, and the pianos being wheeled across. And everyone was very excited. So Paul did us the biggest favor he possibly could do. And I talked to him later, and he said, "Ray, I knew you guys needed a kick in the ass. There was nothing I could do. I don't know what was going to kick you in the ass. So I said, I quit. You do it yourselves." And it worked perfectly. So God bless him.
It's so interesting that your song, Riders on the Storm, that you actually played in the covers with Santana and Snoop Dogg. Yes.
I played with the Carlos Santana version, and Robbie and I played with Snoop Dogg. So you will listen very carefully. You will hear Ray Manzarek's keyboard on both of them, and Robbie Krieger's guitar on the Snoop Dogg version.
Yeah, of all the albums that you have done, would you consider L.A. Woman in the blues rock genre?
No, it was just coming back to basics. It was after we had gone all the way from a basic 4-track recording of just the Doors on our first album, The Doors. Then we evolved to more electronics on Strange Days, a little more recording, and then into Soft Parade. In Soft Parade, we used horns and strings. And then we started to go back into Morrison Hotel and then back to L.A. Woman for basic foundation, back to basics. And it was our last album for Elektra Records. The contract was up. We were free to do whatever we wanted. We no longer owed Elektra Records any albums. And at that point, Jim Morrison said, "Hey, we're done here, man," or "I'm done. I've recorded all my vocals. We have a couple of more songs to mix. I'm going to Europe. I'm going to go to Paris." And we all, what? We reacted with shock, and yet it was terrific because Jim needed a vacation. There's no doubt about that. It was too much rock and roll decadence. As the lead singer, you get everything. All women, it's like Steppenwolf. All women are yours. All indulgence is yours. All drugs are available to you. Every sin is permitted when you're a famous rock star.
And, of course, that could come with a heavy burden.
Oh, of course, man. And he needed to get away to get back to being a writer. He was going to Paris. He was going to be Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald in Paris, It was going to be Henry Miller in Paris, Jim Morrison in Paris. Beats in Paris and Morrison in Paris. So I thought it was terrific. Go, man, go to France, go to Paris, go write. Get your writing Jones back on. Start writing again. Not that he wasn't, but there were so many distractions. Too many girls, too much booze, too much drugs, too many sucker friends, people who were sucking at his energy because he was famous. Just to be with Jim Morrison, to hang out with him, and to talk in a bar. He was talking his energy away. Talk is cheap. Talk gets you nothing unless somebody is recording it and writing down. I can imagine he said lots of good things while half intoxicated in a bar with his friends, but that got him nowhere. And as far as he was concerned, that got him nowhere also. So he wanted to take off to Paris, and I thought it was a great idea. I had no idea it would end in 4 months.
And wasn't the band planning on recording another album?
Oh, yeah. Sure, John and Robbie and I we rehearsed. We would rehearse 2-3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just like we always did. Waiting for Jim to come back in 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. I figured at least 6 months, but that would be fine, and we'd have a bunch of songs together, and everything was proceeding as a pace. And he wrote a lot of poetry in Paris too. We have Jim Morrison's unpublished poetry from Paris. Well, it doesn't belong to us, the Doors, unfortunately, although there are some songs there. But for the most part, it's Jim writing in his notebook, and some of it's good, and some of it's not so good. But that's how it is when you're writing. Some work, some doesn't work. Some's good, some isn't good. Some are songs. So maybe someday that'll come out. Who knows? It's not up to me. It's up to the estate.
And you had a song with a lot of distorted vocals called "She Smells So Nice," and you were finally able to remaster it and put it out.
Yeah. And that's a total surprise. We didn't realize it even existed. People said, why did you save it so long? We didn't even know it existed. I didn't know there was something called "She Smells So Nice" until we heard the outtakes and started listening to all the outtakes to see, what did we do? I don't remember it. I remember the songs. And I remember recording the songs that are on the album, but you always do some extra things. And we had Blues Day, and we did some blues, and we would do things in between takes, and that was one of them. And there it is. Hey, this is a brand new song. Let's put it out. It'll be a special event.
Ray, it must have been really difficult and devastating. You're in your early 30s, and then after Jim's death, how to continue? You were having all this success, and the Doors never put any more music out, but you made a complete career out of this as well.
Yeah, why escape it? We did it. We put it together. Jim and I put the band together on the beach in Venice, California. his words, and I was going to make the music. And then we found Robbie Krieger, who was my God, wrote Light My Fire. How brilliant. What serendipity. You know, the better angels of our nature brought Robbie around. The Greek muses, the Greek muse of music said, okay, Robbie, you're going to play with Ray and Jim. You're going to have a great time. And he wrote Light My Fire, the first song he ever wrote. It's like, wait a minute, that's like, did this really happen? This is like a miracle of some sort, or being directed by the fates somehow. So we're very happy. The music was terrific. What we put together was work. It worked. That's the main thing as an artist. Does it work or not? Somebody said, are you proud? I said, it's not a matter of pride. Pride must exist. As the Bible says, pride goeth before a fall. If you're too proud, you're probably going to have a fall and come out of that pride, fool. It's does it work as an artist? Is it good? Is it good? Does it work? Does it happen? Did it conform to your preconceived image? And certainly the Doors conformed to my preconceived image. And Jim Morrison was bigger than I ever thought he would be. He was very handsome when we first put the band together, and I knew the girls would like him. You know, we'd have this great music and songs and words, and on top of it, we'd have this incredibly handsome lead singer that, the girls are going to love. They loved Mick Jagger and various other English pop stars, and here comes from California, Jim Morrison. Wow, is he handsome? And the Doors, I mean, that's about, opening the doors of perception. People are going to ask, where does the name come from? The name comes from William Blake and then Aldous Huxley. The doors of perception, opening the doors in your mind, being infinite. So you get to talk about LSD and cosmic consciousness when you talk about the Doors. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's fabulous. Jim Morrison, hey, the doors of perception, open your mind. Get high, for God's sake. Stop drinking and get out to the forest, get out to a lake, get out to the water, go into nature and take some LSD. It'll make you a new human being. You'll become the new man on planet Earth, which is what we're all trying to do anyway. We're trying to become the new man of the future. Well, here's the secret. A little pill, little LSD. That's all you need.
Have you ever imagined what it would be like if Jim was still around?
We would be doing, yes, I'm supposed to prognosticate and tell you what 40 years later what the Doors would be doing. Just tell us, Ray. Okay. We'd be doing an American Prayer. More poetry, more spoken word, and live. We would combine film, perhaps acting, movement of one sort or another in prepared theaters that would be surrounded by sound and light. And there would be a combination of music and theater. And the records would be probably a bit more in the vein of Riders on the Storm.
You have an interesting book out, The Poet in Exile. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
And Ray, is the character in the book, is that about Jim Morrison?
About a rock star very much like Jim Morrison. Mm-hmm. But, anytime we do anything, it's got Jim Morrison. I mean, people are just so enamored and fascinated by Jim, more so than I ever thought. I had no idea that they would be so enamored and so caught up in the mythology of Jim Morrison. I thought the main thing about Jim Morrison would, of course, be his poetry. I don't know. He was just so gosh darn handsome. He was so handsome and had such a mythological Dionysian aspect. No one came along to play the role of Dionysus in our modern, contemporary second half of the 20th century rock and roll. There's no real... Well, there was Elvis. Elvis was the first Dionysian figure, and then along comes Morrison. So in the psychedelic era of rock and roll, there's no real Dionysian. Mick Jagger, half a Dionysus, but Morrison was full on Dionysus. So he just played that role to the hilt, and people were totally enamored. There's no Dionysian aspect in Christianity other than the resurrection of Jesus Christ, death and resurrection. So Morrison fulfills that role.
Ray, again, this has been an incredible pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Great talking with you.
Ray, we really enjoyed having you here with us today.
Thank you again for listening to Popstar Conversations. Be sure to click the subscribe button below and hit the red bell so that you'll be notified of our next exclusive interview.
Thank you for listening to Popstar Conversations. Please join us again for another conversation with your favorite musical artist.